All right, good morning. Welcome in to the Out of Bounds Show on ESPN 1059 The Zone. Brought to you by award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, Philadelphia, Mississippi, Pearl River Resort. Bet $50 at the sportsbook. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Course for only $30. Been ranked in the top 100 several times nationally. DancingRabbitGolf.com. Show is also driven by your next Ford F-150 truck, Mack Hike Ford. I-55 North in Jackson. We welcome in Charles Davis, played at Tennessee in the 80s and longtime broadcaster for Fox and now CBS Sports. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Charles Davis, good morning. Where are you heading?
Good morning, Bo. How are you? I'm actually headed not terribly far from you, I think. I'm going to Mobile for Senior Bowl week.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That'll be.
Yeah, looking forward to it. This is it's one of those things where, you know how lucky we are to be in this business that we're in, right?
Yes.
You wake up every day. I wake up every day. And sometimes we have those days where it tries us a little bit, just like anyone else. But at the end of the day, how many friends do you meet along the way that you just know that they would trade with you? And you know what they do, and there's no way you would trade with them. So I think we're doing okay.
Absolutely. Great point. All right. Now, this may not bring back good memories for you, but I have to tell you the first time as a kid I ever went to Neyland Stadium. All right.
Don Smith, Mississippi State.
You just nailed it. So a friend of mine's dad threw me and my buddy in the car, and we drove to Neyland. And I'd heard about Neyland. This is, as you know, Charles, it's for iPhones and everything that all the young people have. They can see everything.
Absolutely.
And we drive up, and on Friday we're having a great time, and Saturday, and it's Rocky Felker's first season. But Don Smith was and Fred Hadley were unbelievable. And that was a big deal for Mississippi State because y'all were really good. Johnny Majors had that thing rolling, and my dad had told me about Majors for years. And so that was my first experience at Neyland Stadium, Charles.
Yeah, a great day for you, a lousy day for me and my teammates. But, boy, as you said, Don Smith was absolutely scintillating in that game. Mississippi State played inspired the entire.
Yeah, they started off 6-0 that year.
Yeah, they sure did. I think Bruce Plummer was on that team. You remember Fred Hadley?
Yeah.
I remember a pass interference call, I believe, that went against me that to this day I don't believe was pass interference. I typically admit when you've nailed me, but this one I thought that they missed. But Don Smith, he didn't miss on the big run to finish us off. I mean, he was something else and went on and proved it in the pros as a running back, kick returner in the NFL. Just a wonderful, wonderful player. And it really sent us into a tailspin because we were, I think, number 8 in the country at the time. We lose that ball game. And before I blinked and looked up, Bo, we were 2-5.
Wow.
Coming off of a SEC championship the year before, the defending SEC champs, top 10 in the country, had beaten Miami in the Sugar Bowl when they were really good. We beat them 35-7 and cost them a national title. And now I look up and we're 2-5. We have Don Smith running past us. We go to Georgia Tech with a chance to win in the rain, and our field goal kicker's plant foot slips. He still kicks the ball, gets no elevation. It hits the crossbar, bounces back at us. We lose 16-14. The best part of the trivia that night, Bo, now that we're older and can actually talk about it without weeping, is that happened, and then I'm on the bus to head to the airport to head back to Knoxville. We were in Atlanta, and the bus driver had on the World Series. And that was the night the Mets were playing Boston, and that's the night it went through Bill Buckner's leg.
Wow.
And we're on the bus, and we had lost, and I remember it goes through his legs. I turned to my teammate Kelly Ziegler, our linebacker. I said, well, Kelly, outside of Knoxville, we might be off the hook.
Yes.
Nobody's going to talk about us tomorrow. They're going to talk about this. But that was a small consolation when you play in the SEC because for us, that slogan they have now, it just means more, is legit. It does just mean more. And, boy, we were hurting. But we ended up finishing 6-5, went to the Liberty Bowl and beat Minnesota, went 7-5. So we finished strong, but it was a year of what could have been. but none of those things about flukes or anything like that. They beat us fair and square and deserved it. And that was a big, big, big win for Mississippi State. They got off that great start, as you recall.
Charles Davis, longtime broadcaster, played at Tennessee, quarterback, flipped over to the defensive side. It definitely worked out. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show. I got to ask you about the Sugar Bowl and beat Miami. So
yeah.
I grew up, I remember Snellenberger. I was a kid. I remember Jimmy Johnson, then Erickson, and so on. Did y'all understand the magnitude? Because back then, again, we didn't have as much access to everything. But did y'all understand the magnitude of where the Hurricanes were in the hierarchy and how big a W that was, Charles?
Yeah, we did. And, Bo, you're right about it. We don't have, and I apologize for the ambient noise. I'm traveling, so I'm at the airport, so maybe a few extra announcements, so apologies to everyone. But, yeah, but we understood. The magnitude was easy because even though there wasn't, as you said, the extra we have now, right, with the social media and the 24/7 sports channels and things of that nature, in the world of college football, the way Miami was playing, what Coach Schnellenberger had done to get them to that stage, you remember his recruiting slogan? We are going to lock down the state of Miami. In other words, we're going to get everybody in this Miami area. We get them. We're good. Yeah. And they were. And, he wins a national title, upsets Nebraska in the Orange Bowl, moves on to what he thinks is a pro job, and it fizzled out, and he ended up at Louisville. And here comes Jimmy Johnson to take over. And after a little sputtering, all of a sudden they were the Canes again. And, boy, were they ever. I mean, just loaded. When I look back at that team we played and how many of them went to the pros, and some guys who are just sensational players. There's no way we should have been on the same field with them. And then you turn on the film and watch what they did and watch them run over people. The interesting part was they started the year losing to Florida, and they didn't lose the rest of the year. They went up to Norman, Oklahoma, and beat Oklahoma with Troy Aikman was the quarterback, broke his leg in the game, knocked him out of the game. He never played another down at Oklahoma. He transferred to UCLA, and they went back to the wishbone. And then Oklahoma had their big run, and they were in the Orange Bowl against Penn State with one loss. And they were praying we would beat Miami because if we did and they beat Penn State, they could claim a national title. So did we understand where we were in the hierarchy? We absolutely did. We understood what was going on, the magnitude, everything that was happening, how good they were. Once you got through the jolt, Bo, of watching them on tape and saying, okay, and going through the old, they put on their pants one leg at a time type of a thing. You said to yourself, okay, we're not so bad either. So let's go give this thing a run, and we can throw some stuff at them they haven't seen, and who knows? And then we were able to do that night, even though we kicked off to them. We stuffed them on a 3-and-out, and, boy, I'm telling you, we were sky high, Bo. And then they ran a fake punt and got the first down. And then threw a touchdown pass to Michael Irvin like one or two plays later. And they were talking big-time Miami trash, up 7-0. And they didn't score the rest of the night. We beat them 35-7.
Wow. And for our listeners, Charles Davis just referenced that Barry Switzer run, too, with the Buys and Holloway and all that crew.
Oh, yeah.
And
Loaded.
they were filthy. I mean, they were so good. And so was Miami. So that was a big win in the Sugar Bowl, and that was back when we had half as many bowls, if not less. And so going to it's still a big deal, but going to the Sugar Bowl back then was huge.
Oh, paramount. This is our first serve. Tennessee hadn't won the SEC in 16 years at that point, Bo. So You can imagine our fan base and how starved they were for a winner. And we gave it to them. We were fortunate. That year, we tied for the SEC championship with Florida. They beat us 17-10 in Gainesville, and then I think Georgia beat Florida. And so we were tied with the same record, but they were on probation, so they weren't eligible to go. So if they had not been on probation, they would have won the Sugar Bowl bid by beating us head-to-head. But they weren't eligible, so we took the spot.
Okay.
And then we went. I think we were a double-digit underdog to Miami. I mean, Miami was low. They were number 2 in the country, and, we've talked about that a number of times. In fact, that team the next year, Vinny Testaverde, of course, he won the Heisman the next year.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, they won the Heisman, and that was the game I believe they lost to Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl.
That's right. That was Paterno's last one.
Yeah, that's how the Fiesta Bowl turned into the big deal that it was because no college football playoff. You know, we didn't have a BCS system. We didn't even have what was it even before the BCS, a BAA or whatever it was. We didn't have any of those. None of those were in place. But the Fiesta Bowl was the only bowl that didn't have an affiliation. Like, it wasn't SEC champ or Big 12 champ or Big 10 champ. None of that. They were totally independent. And Penn State was an independent at the time, and they were number one or number two. Miami was number one. Penn State was number two. And Miami was coming off of it. I think they were an independent at the time. And they could put those two together. And that turned the Fiesta Bowl into what we see nowadays. It was that's what elevated them. They could spring up the money. Hey, you two come play each other 1 versus 2. No worries about the bowls. Neither one of you has to go anywhere else. And they made them a great offer, and that turned into the classic that it was. But the Fiesta Bowl originally came about because Arizona State was really good under Frank Kush and never had anywhere to go play. Because they were in the WAC. And so they created the Fiesta Bowl to kind of give them a bowl game to go play in. And that's how the whole thing got started. And then the Penn State-Miami game jumped it to major status and a New Year's Day Bowl that we know now.
What a great story. Charles Davis played at Tennessee. He's been with Fox and CBS for 30 years. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. He's on his way to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, which is not but 3 hours away from us. And the practices is, I think, where you get all that's where the guys show out and really prove who they are and what they are, as Charles knows. And so it's a big deal the next 4 days for these young men to get after it and put some good stuff on tape, and everybody in the NFL is there. I know you probably have to go, but I want a couple more. Just let us know. I have to ask you about the App State-Michigan game that you called. It was a precursor. So the spread was here, and Urban Meyer and Rich Rod and all the other guys were doing things late 90s, early 2000s. But spreading a blue blood out and doing it on the national stage and beating Michigan kind of set the stage. Talk about what it was like, Charles, to call that game and see a G5 team beat a blue blood.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. The one thing that has to be put on the record, Bo, is that Appalachian State team had won back-to-back national championships in 1AA, which is now FCS, Football Championship Subdivision. So they were very good. So it wasn't a matter of this team just kind of emerged out of nowhere as one of the monster upsets. Was it an upset? Absolutely. Because Michigan was top 5 in the country preseason. In fact, their quarterback, Chad Henne, running back Mike Hart, left tackle Jake Long, who later was the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, all said they came back to Michigan that year for one reason. They wanted to, well, it's a couple of reasons. They wanted to beat Ohio State. They wanted to win a Big Ten title. They wanted to win a national title. And they had that opportunity. So going into that game, of course, yes, the 2-time defending 1AA champs, but you're going up to the top 5 team at Michigan. Yes, it was an upset. It was the first game ever. It was the first anything ever on the air of Big Ten Network. Big Ten Network opened with Appalachian State at Michigan. That's how it came on air and came into existence. I was fortunate enough to do the game with Tom Brenneman as the play-by-play and one Carissa Thompson on the sideline, her first ever sideline assignment. So there's a lot of firsts going into this one. And I remember at halftime, we were on a break, and I looked at Tom. He's like, so you think Michigan will just kind of take over in the second half? I said, I don't know. I said, let me tell you why. Normally in these types of games, when you have this type of an upset, and Bo, you've seen it a million times, the team who has to spring the upset gets a ton of breaks. And they're killing you in the turnover battle, right? The best team makes a lot of mistakes, commits a lot of penalties, turns the ball over. You know what I'm talking about, right? At halftime, Appalachian State was winning the ball game, and Michigan was winning the turnover battle 3-1. And I just told Tom, I said, with all that in play, we're fine. This is a legit Appalachian State team. Now, Michigan's going to run at them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They're Michigan. But I think App State can pull this off. Like, I'm not saying they will, but can they? Yes, they're good enough. Well, Bo, as the game kept developing, the run from Michigan happened. You knew it was coming. Here they go. Mike Hart gets going. Offensive line takes control of the line of scrimmage. Now Henne hits some big passes, Mario Manningham and some other people. But the other part was App State actually took their offense and kind of slowed things down. They started looking at the clock. They started seeing if they could just kind of outlast Michigan. I'll be darned if Michigan didn't go down and take the lead. And one of the few things I've ever said right in my life, I said on air, I said, this is a weird one, but if anything, it might actually be freeing for Appalachian State, that now they don't have to look at the clock anymore. They don't have to outlast them. They can go back and run the offense they've been running the entire game. And they did, and got back to getting in gear and getting going. And I'll be darned, they go back again. Armonte Edwards was their quarterback. It was an All-American. Takes them down. They get the score, blah, blah, blah. And then Michigan actually had a chance to win it, was kicking a field goal to win it, and the thing gets blocked. And the guy who blocked it and picked it up was Corey, what was his name? Corey Edwards? That's probably wrong. Anyway, number 47, he's like their 2 or 3 time All-American safety. Blocks it, picks it up, runs it back. He didn't need to, but the excitement got to him. Game's over now, essentially, blah, blah, blah. Here's the kicker to that. That young man, his college girlfriend was Billy Graham's granddaughter.
Whoa.
So somewhere, if you want to go for the divine providence and the whole thing about that day, that kind of summed the whole thing up.
I love it. Charles Davis joining us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Charles has also been a part of the C. Spire Connerly Award, which we cover every year.
Boy, am I lucky to be a part of that.
Isn't it cool? They've done a really good job with that.
It is so cool. Listen, I grew up in New York State, okay? I was born in East Tennessee, grew up in New York State. I grew up knowing about Charlie Connerly.
Yeah.
Because of the New York Giants. So, you know, him, Jake Gibbs with the Yankees. I knew Mississippi people, and I knew what a big deal Charlie Connerly was. So the first time I got a phone call to ask me if I wanted to be a part of it, I just left it to chance. Because while I was in school, I knew who won the Connerly Award every year. It was a big deal. I knew who got it in the state of Mississippi. So to be a part of that, I considered it an honor, and I still do. So anytime they want me there, I'll be there. And I just absolutely love that. And yeah, the redhead is still revered in New York. You know, when you talk about the Giants, in fact, I had a Giants game to end the season, and was at their offices in practice before the game. I walked right by a big old picture of Charlie Connerly.
That is so cool.
Doing his thing. So it's really a cool thing.
Yeah, you think about the winners: Dak Prescott, Eli Manning, Patrick Willis, Deuce,
it's just phenomenal.
Jeffrey Simmons. It's wow. It's
it's a big wow. You know, when you look at it and you see it, and to know what it means to the kids that win it in the state of Mississippi, that understand. And by the way, you know, Bo, it's harder all the time. You know, we're always trying to teach our kids history and all that. I'm sure we were the ones at one point when our parents were teaching us and we were rolling our eyes and the whole thing. But if you spend 5 minutes and you're involved in the sport, to win that award means everything, especially in the state where you did your college football.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. You talk about every school playing in the state. Right? I mean, every they're all eligible, and that was the best part of it. And this year, I believe a Division II kid won it.
Delta State
down there, Delta State.
And
I grew up knowing Delta State because of Lucy Harris playing college basketball.
Yes.
So it always keeps coming in the threads of sports. It binds and ties us all together, and it's a really cool thing.
Yeah. Patrick Shigag from Delta, man, they had a great year.
Yes.
His numbers were insane. That's
insane, absolutely insane. And then to hear his journey where he had won the job, lost the job, never transferred, didn't threaten to quit, backed up the guy who was playing ahead of him, got his job back.
Wow.
Quality young man.
That's awesome.
Put it mildly.
All right. Well, look, I could keep you on for a long time. But I really,
I appreciate it.
hey,
Thank you for understanding. I go catch a plane.
yeah, you got to
I appreciate it
go.
very much.
Love your work. Thanks for being a part of the C Spire Connerly, and have fun in Mobile. And maybe we can do this again in a few months.
I look forward to it, Bo. I appreciate it very much. And yes, please give everyone at C Spire the Connerly Award, the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame, all those great people, my best. They treat me so well each and every time. And as I told you before, it's an honor to be a small part of it.
Love it. Charles Davis on the Out of Bounds Show. Thanks, Charles. Take care.
Take care. You be good, Bo.
He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. This segment was driven by your next Ford F-150 truck at Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson, pre-owned and new. Phenomenal player at Tennessee, been in the broadcasting business for 30 years, called 3 national championships, won the Sugar Bowl over Miami and Jimmy Johnson. And again, been a part of the C Spire Connerly, and the C Spire team raves about him. So we appreciate Charles Davis giving us some time. Played for Rocky Top, Johnny Majors. Man, as a kid, 12 years old or whatever I was, walking in that stadium, 105,000 people there, all a sea of orange. It was wild. It was my eyes were wide open. My jaw was down on the ground, and it's an impressive place. That was my first time to Knoxville.
Wow, I can't imagine that being your first time.
Yeah. And they had a phenomenal team. Like you said, they were coming off. I didn't realize that when I walked in. They were coming off winning the Sugar Bowl and the SEC. And then Don Smith was awesome that day. He would go on to play in the NFL, but he ripped off a couple of big plays. We're live in the BankPlus Studio, Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Straight ahead, we'll give you a little bit of Lane Kiffin and Jeff Lebby coming out of Oxford and Starkville. Lebby worked for Lane Kiffin for 2 years, and now he's the head football coach in Stark Vegas. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.